Yes, thank you. The minutes are as reported, nothing unusual from the meeting. We had a good meeting. Michael's going to go over most of the material that we went through in the meeting, so there's nothing unusual. So as leave them as presented in case anyone has any questions.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve?
Aye.
Second.
Moved by Margaret, second by, I think it was Mark. All in favor?
Jim Orban
Aye.
seconded.
Oh, Jim
Aye.
Orban. Okay, sorry, Jim, I didn't hear you. Looks like unanimous. Item 3, preferred. There's no action items, so we'll move to item 4.0. Action items, recommend approval of resolution of revised resolution for president's compensation and evaluation. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Oh,
Motion by Sharon, second by Barb. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. 4.2, recommend approval of resolution for social media certificate.
so moved.
Moved by Kathy,
Second.
second by Margaret. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. 5.0, President's Report. Dr. Drum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy 2021. Whoever thought a few months ago that we'd look at January and think it would be far more tumultuous than where we had already been on more than one front. But hopefully by looking at the county numbers for the last few days, I'm knocking on a lot of wood, which I sort of get a lot of pushback from our science faculty on that. It looks like we might be at the peak here, the way the numbers have been, and the testing has been holding fairly steady for the testing percentage, the R value for the last few days. Maybe I hope we're at the final peak, and it'll be a steady decline from here as people get vaccinated and a whole lot less gathering after the holidays. So lots more good stuff to come here at some point in the not too distant future. Thank you all for your patience and perseverance and everything else over these last, 10 months now, going on a year. What a long haul, and it's going to be, I think, at least several months longer, but light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you all, and again, thanks to all of our faculty and staff who have stepped up to help us make it through this. And we'll have to continue stepping up, at least certainly through spring term, and maybe things will begin to lighten up in the summer if we can catch up on vaccines. We were on a few calls and a few presentations around the governor's executive budget and the state budget overall at this point, thanks to what looks more likely to happen in Washington. Right now, the state is projecting that it will cut our budget less than they thought. There'll still be a cut, but ideally, depending on which, if any, stimulus package goes through, so we'll still be holding our breath a little bit longer. Right now, the projection it won't be as bad, even if the smaller stimulus package that's being discussed goes through, but it will vary depending on whether the larger one, which probably won't go through, or the smaller one, or somewhere in between. So good news, at least to start the year as the state begins its budget discussions, that it doesn't look to be as bad as we've been planning for. Nothing to get all excited about, because it will be a cut, just a matter of how big it's going to be, and hopefully not too big. Our enrollment challenges continue. We continue to do well with new students interested in the college, but our students who were here last semester voted with their feet, and many of them decided not to come back. It was pretty hefty number. We're down overall by 20% at this point, so we're catching up to our peers, unfortunately, and largely due to students not returning. We know from our surveys and SUNY surveys that half of our students do not like distance learning. They'll be looking forward to coming back when they can sit in the classroom and do all the other things that go with college. And in fact, I was on an enrollment management Zoom for an hour and a half with the SUNY community college presidents this afternoon. And the enrollment management expert was talking about just how important, how critical campus activities are to students when they're making a choice to go to college. And of course, at least throughout SUNY, we're not having a whole lot of that. Some of the
Kevin?
wealthier privates who can test everybody every week are doing more, but yes, Margaret.
They're not going to another school. They're just not going to school?
Well, we won't know that until we survey them, here in a few weeks. We always survey our students who don't return, and we'll find out. Actually, our transfer numbers for January were up a little while ago. People coming here from other places, just not in huge numbers. We never get a huge number of transfers in January. But that number actually looks pretty good for students who are coming here. We won't know until we survey them, a couple of weeks into the term, which we always do. One would think not, but it's possible.
I hope not.
One would think they're stopping out, hopefully not dropping out. At this point, it's happening all over the country. The numbers are huge all over the country, particularly for community colleges, because your lower economic, your low socioeconomic families, those are the kids that tend not to be going to school this year, and that most of those kids go to community college.
Wow.
Let's see, testing. Some of you know, SUNY has asked us to test 100% of our students every week instead of every other week. For us, it's not a heavy lift, pretty heavy lift for the large residential campuses, but it's across the board. And they want all faculty and staff who are here on campus to test every week as well. Can't require the unions to do that, but most people have been pitching in and getting tested when they have the opportunity to do that. So that's the new gig, is testing everybody every week because of the spike, because of the peak in cases right now. And thousands of students coming back to campus across the state, although a number of SUNY campuses are staggering when they're going to start on campus. They're not all going to start on February 1st. I think Binghamton's February 11th. I think Cortland announced February 25th. So they'll start online, as we will on Monday, and then bring students to campus a little later because of the spike in cases. Those are the only ones I heard from on the call the other day. Other than esports, we aren't having any winter sports. We do hope to have spring sports, baseball, softball, tennis. It's reasonable to social distance with those. Travel is the bigger challenge, but if we test a lot, we can handle the travel. And hopefully by then, lots more folks will have been vaccinated. We'll see what the odds are of young folks being vaccinated by then. Probably not real high, unfortunately. So we'll see how that goes. But we are tentatively, everybody is across the state, planning on softball, baseball, and tennis, and if you have golf and whatnot for spring sports, we outdoors and warmer weather, and relatively easy to social distance in those sports. County was back in the ICE Center today, scheduled 400 vaccines, which is can do up to 500 a day. Then we're told they won't have another shipment to be open until next Thursday and Friday. That's the last I heard this morning. Whether if that changes, we'll let you know exactly who's signing up for the county and who's signing up for the state at the BU Gannett building. I don't know how that goes, but they're all filled up, which is a good thing. I just wish we could fill them up every day with the supply. Some good news. I shared with you. We're going to try to work with SHPO to coordinate press releases, but it's time to get the word out since I got this letter on December 23rd from the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation here in the state. Each year, the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation recognizes excellence in the preservation and rejuvenation of New York's historic and cultural treasures. I'm not going to read the whole thing, just the first paragraph. This year, it is our honor and pleasure to present you with a 2020 New York State Historic Preservation Award for the SUNY Broome Culinary and Events Center. This project is an excellent example of a rehabilitation project that successfully utilized commercial historic tax credits to transform the former Carnegie Library in downtown Binghamton into an educational and community asset. So we were pleased to receive that on December 23rd. There's usually a ceremony, and of course there's not going to be a ceremony this year. We've also been nominated for the County Historic Preservation Award 2 years running, but 2 years running we've lost to commercial projects. So I guess that's a good thing that a number of buildings are being renovated. A number of our historic buildings are being renovated, and private developers are willing to put millions, if not tens of millions of dollars into some of our historic infrastructure. So if we're going to lose that, that's a good way to lose. Irene Burns, our advisor to PTK, speaking of academic support activities, our co-curriculum, was awarded a 15-year pin for advising our Phi Theta Kappa students. Those are our top honors students and civically engaged students as well, which we require, not every chapter does. And Irene just does an extraordinary job with that group of Phi Theta Kappa students, and she was awarded her 15-year service pin this year. That's a really great thing for us and the students that she works with, and all the activities that they put on. And they've done a number of virtual activities this year, actually, that group. Figure they're high-end academic students as well as involved in the community, so they're active all the time. And I don't know if you can see this, but and this will wrap it up, Kate, unless there are any questions. Is this the camera? Yeah. This is the 100th anniversary book of the American Association of Community Colleges. It's 100 years old this year. Community colleges are 120 years old. The association is 100 years old. And 3 times, I'm not going to show all 3, but 3 times SUNY Broome is featured in the book. There are a few colleges featured 2 or 3 times, and we were one of them. This is a picture from 1951. Bundles for Binghamton from Brooklyn. If you've been around long enough, you know that the Armory burnt down in 1951. And schools around the country sent books to replenish the library. And that's a trailer load from Brooklyn. And that's one of the pictures that the AACC down there in DC chose to include in their book. And there's 2 more. There's one of the National Academic Award winners. Orion is in there in the picture with representing the state of New York. There it is. It happened to be the year that Orion won the big award representing New York to the national conference as a Coca-Cola scholar. They choose one from each state, and Orion was the New York representative that year. So he's in there, and there's another picture of us in there somewhere. Really neat to see. I was not expecting that. So I wanted to end on a good note. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair, unless there are any questions.
I do have a question, Dr. Drum, with regard to the state budget and the better than projected state budget. And maybe Michael is going to address this, but they mentioned reducing the withhold of aid to localities from 20% to 5% in the current budget as a result of better budget performance than they were forecasting. Is that applying to the community colleges as well?
Probably. Michael will, I don't know, there are no guarantees yet, but at the moment it applies to community colleges.
And it's supposed to be by March 31st, right? That the difference in the withhold that they've already done is supposed to be sent to the, again, local government, school districts, et cetera, right?
Michael will cover that.
Super.
Thank you, Jason. Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Drum. 5.2, Middle States, Trustee Ball.
Sharon, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
So sorry. Please excuse me. I do that all the time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report is in the packet. As you can see, the scheduled site visit is March 28th through the 31st. That's Dr. Connolly, who attended previous meeting, who will be doing the site visit, for which the self-study is being finalized, and will be ready for submission 6 weeks prior to his visit, along with, as Dr. McLean tells me, that there's a COVID supplement that has been requested. And it will include a verification of compliance report, which outlines how the college meets federal and mid-state rules and regulations. That's being developed now. And that will also be submitted along with the self-study. I think this is cool that a video is being prepared, which will provide a virtual tour of the campus, because as you know, this site visit will be virtual. So a video is being put together to give them a real sense of the campus. I think that's very cool, by the way. So that's my report. The rest is anything else is in my report there. So that concludes my report. Any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Trustee Ball.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. McLean.
5.3, Council of Academic Issues Update. Andrea, Roma.
Thank you, Chairman Panicia. I just want to say good evening to all of you, the Board of Trustees, my fellow VPs and fellow colleagues. I haven't seen your faces in a while, so it's nice to see you all. So I'm actually going to pull a Price is Right and say hello to my best friend, Stephanie, out in Oregon. I actually sent her this link to kind of show her a little bit about what I do in my position. So she's watching now through the live feed. So I just want to say hi to her. So before I begin, I just wanted to extend a thank you to those members on CAI. As you can see through the report, we've been very busy and anticipate the momentum to continue, if not increase, for the spring semester. Despite being remote for our bi-weekly meetings, our group has been very engaged and have been able to conduct business with little or no interruptions. If anything, we have exceptional attendance from our members, along with others on campus attending as guests. So the virtual format has proven to increase the opportunity for participation across campus. The report is categorized for ease of information flow, and I'll highlight just a few things in each of the areas. So for general updates, we will continue to utilize Zoom for our spring meetings, along with using Google Forms through a means of voting for those more sensitive issues and matters presented to CAI. In our next section, topics and voting results, we've been very busy on voting in various drafts and documents presented to CAI. I did forget to mention in this area that it was brought to CAI what we call a netiquette, or basically students' conduct and behaviors through a virtual format of learning. So whether that be synchronous or asynchronous, CAI felt it was important to make sure the etiquette related to this type of learning environment is addressed in the student handbook. So we did draw up a memo and send it to the interim dean of students just to make her aware of that conversation, and to be sure that any processes related to our on-campus courses were also inclusive of those delivered in an online format as well. And again, this is most related to conduct and behavior. We've had a number of presentations at CAI, including those implementing drafts related to SUNY mandates or policies, such as the open policy that Paul Bond, our librarian, did. We've certainly had a number of presentations from Dr. McLean, including the Middle State self-study. And then also any additional means of training that our faculty may benefit from, especially those with accessibility within our courses. So fun fact, CAI also oversees the SUNY Awards Committee, and this is a number of committees that oversee the processes of the SUNY Awards, such as the prestigious Chancellor's Award and Distinguished Faculty Ranks Award. In October, the nominees for the Chancellor Awards in Excellence in Teaching was sent to SUNY. Within the next 2 weeks, we will be convening to select those for the Chancellor's Awards in Excellence for Professional Service and Excellence in Teaching. And then by March, we will convene and have selected a nominee for the Chancellor's Award in Classified Service. This is all a confidential process down to the members that serve on each of these committees. And SUNY will confirm the nominees that we have sent forward for each of these awards in April, in which we will be notified and announced to campus as per that process. And then currently what we have in progress, we have some ongoing initiatives that will remain on the agenda until there is consensus for next steps or actions, whether that be to drop a recommendation or referral to another work group on campus. We will continue to work with our campus bookstore manager on educating our faculty about how the bookstore can best serve them and their students, and help identify and troubleshoot any of those common, I call them mishaps, that happen with textbook at each of this semester. We feel that building this relationship is extremely important to help in fostering the partnership with a bookstore that we believe is overdue. We also have a work group of teaching faculty, staff associates, our registrar, our dean, and advisors, just to name a few, and they're reviewing the course waivers and substitution process on how our departments and their programs can best serve their students' needs for graduation and transfer of courses to a number of institutions, while creating a process that is consistent across the academic divisions. And I want to thank those individuals for serving and extend our utmost support during their meetings and processes of this. So I'd like to thank you for the opportunity for me to report on the activities of CAI. I'm very proud of CAI this year and look forward to seeing them next week at our first meeting. And I know that I'll be reporting back again to the BOT towards the end of the spring semester. Are there any questions concerning my report?
Seeing no questions, thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
5.4 Student Affairs Update, Dr. Carol Ross.
Hi, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Chairman. Currently, I serve as a lead coach for SUNY coaches and training for various institutions. And today we had one of our retreats where we were reflecting on leadership and coaching and things that have happened over the past year. And you will see from my report that the focus this year for us for this month was on student civic engagement, because we talk about wanting our students to be, we want to prepare our students for global citizenry. And while I was in the session today for a couple of hours, I was reflecting on the past year and the realization that the rigor in the classroom should be in the classroom and not in our students' everyday lives. And the activism that I remember that was brought on by the events of the past summer and as they continue today really served as an impetus for us to really try and get our students civically engaged. Our campus life department took the lead in providing a variety of opportunities for students to understand just how important it is for them to be woke across anything, whether it's locally, state, or nationally. We want our students to understand how very important it is for them to participate in the elections and among other things. And as you can see from the report, we hosted quite a few activities like why your vote matters, how to vote, what to do after the election happens, because a lot of the students, question, well, if I'm going to vote, then what next? So we had sessions for them on that. Students were also afforded the opportunity to try to take advantage of working the election. And not only that, to get people engaged, we offered webinars and events that address the racist incidents and the impact on our students. And as we move forward to this spring, we'll continue to provide opportunities for intentional dialogue because, and I'll paraphrase from yesterday, the uncivil war is not over. And our members of the community, particularly our students, need to understand their roles in this process and trying to bring some civility to our community and their lives. And when I reflect back on my moments, it really became apparent that one of the things that we really need to try to focus on is to help students minimize their life's rigors. So this semester, as in all semesters, usually student wellness is going to be one of our really heightened strategic directions, along with the daily work of our personal counselors. Students this past fall conducted peer-to-peer outreach. Our intervention specialists were more intrusive in the residence halls, which really helped us get in contact with students, because we found that with online courses, our students were really tanking. And to help them, as many of them as we can, save themselves this semester, it took a lot of intrusive intervention. And so this year, this spring, we'll continue helping students become more civically engaged. We will continue to work on making sure they are physically and mentally engaged, so that we can minimize the rigors in their life and make sure that the rigors stay in the classroom, because that's where we want it to be. And that's my report. You had the written report and all of the activities, so I didn't think it was, to read them all for you.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. Any questions?
I just had one.
Yes, Trustee Bell.
It just has to do with the tools. Forgive me, I did not completely read the report, and perhaps this is there, but what tools are, just an example of maybe, meditation, or what kind of tools are students given, or what are discussed with him about tools they can have to strengthen themselves, even if they're, if they're in a situation where they cannot, what's happening in their lives is not under their control, for instance.
We try to focus a lot on using your peers to try and help you unload, working with our personal counselors, our intervention specialists, our MSW grads, and I think it's more trying to get them to open up and communicate. I don't know if, and they probably have, because they do a lot of that in the student village, working on meditation and alternative modes, and that's something that I will ask them about, but I don't know whether they have, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because I know they've done yoga before with them, which has been a good outlet for our students as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. 5.5 Student Assembly Update. Student Trustee Asil.
Well, good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year. Since the last meeting, we have had, Student Assembly went on break after, and then we have had our few meetings through our winter semester, but nothing much has happened. We are meeting through the winter semester to just brainstorm, and our committees are put on hold for the time being, and we'll be back up when the spring semester starts. For the meantime, we are sending out flyers that we're looking for new senators. We have open positions, and that's about it for us. And end of my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Asil. 5.6 BCC Foundation Report. Kathy.
Thank you, Anthony. Information is in my report in the packet. Have actually some positive news around the foundation's net assets have exceeded $41 million for the first time ever. I will caution that part of that is due to unrealized gains in our invested endowment. We are right on par, a little bit ahead of where we were last year at the same time in terms of fundraising. despite the fact that we really haven't had a full-on student phone-a-thon program, and given the pandemic and the challenges to the economy. We trustees will be approving, I believe, next month, the $75,000 grant that we are giving to the college on behalf of Lockheed Martin to support COVID-related expenses, particularly for our students through the Student Emergency Fund project. We also will be looking to partner with the campus to have a press event about that, to show how many students we can support and have supported over the past semester with the Student Emergency Fund, hopefully linking to some retention of students. So we are working as part of the enrollment team across campus to do everything we possibly can to help our students during this difficult time. The scholarship application opened this week for our students. We have hundreds of merit and need-based scholarships out there available, and we have extended the deadline and will do so later into the spring semester. So you will be seeing a lot more in the way of advertising around that, and we hope that that will help to enhance enrollment in some fashion and providing private support to students, and so they would consider even enrolling for a semester. We are currently in the process of planning for a virtual alumni reunion this year to be held on April 24th. And we are looking to focus on different presentations that would be of interest to our alumni. And I'm very excited to hear about the video that Trustee Ball mentioned of campus, because what you would be using to show our Middle States folks how robust of a campus and truly, I think, resource-rich looking campus and facilities. We're excited to be able to perhaps borrow that video to share on Alumni Reunion Weekend. I did want to mention one other thing. We are having our first virtual event for alumni on February 4th, which will be a presentation by now retired Professor Dr. Rick Ferenzi, along with one of our recent grads from SUNY Broome, Nick Venuti, who went on to film school and created a video for our biology faculty to use to take students on the field trips that they couldn't do this past year because of the pandemic and such. So they've made a really cool video that's gonna play, and then we're gonna have a Q&A panel, and we're gonna test it out and see how we do. And we will make sure that you all are invited to join us for that. And pretty much the rest of the information is in my report. I did want to say that the foundation continues to be open every day. We do have one person staffing the office at a time as we're trying to do our part to reduce the likelihood of transmitting anything. So we're here if you need us, and thank you all for the great job that you're doing. And shout out to my former coworker, Andrea Roma, who now is across the hall. Miss you. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions? 5.7 facilities update, Mr. Lagaikis.
Thank you, Anthony, and happy 2021, everyone. I hope everyone is safe and well. You should have my report. It'll be brief. Dr. Drum already spoke to the 2020 New York State Historic Preservation Award that we received for the CEC. I mentioned it earlier today at the staff and faculty assembly that we're hoping that this pandemic ends sooner than later so that we can turn that Culinary and Event Center into an event center. I know there's a lot of excitement in the community about the facility and its potential use. So hopefully 3, 4, 5 months down the road, that'll be the case. We had a couple of events both before and after Christmas. We had a 42-inch snowfall, which you all remember. and we had a few pipe breaks after Christmas. And I just want to shout out and give kudos to our facility staff, both maintenance and custodial, as they did an outstanding job in clearing the campus, making it accessible, and also repairing and assisting with the cleanup of the pipe breaks. In fact, in response to snow removal, we've decided to close a number of parking lots on campus, knowing that our vehicular traffic is significantly lower or less. And that assists us, obviously, with having to clean fewer parking lots or clear fewer parking lots. Also, just as a point of information, parking lot 1, which is our biggest parking lot, was used as a staging area for Broome County for equipment storage during cleanup after the storm. So for about a week, there was some pretty heavy snow removal equipment that was parked and staged in parking lot 1. We continue to work on identifying some additional outdoor space across campus that we can upgrade, where we can promote outdoor activities, whether it be classroom or other activities once the weather breaks. We did receive a permanent certificate of occupancy for the new music performance room. And the feedback that I've received, or we've received from both faculty, staff, and students has been exceptional. The facility is an outstanding facility. It's been much needed, and thanks to the foundation for their efforts in supporting that project as well. A couple of other minor things. We've issued the notice to proceed for replacement of the transformer for the AT building, and design has been started for the installation of a small permanent standby generator for the business building, which will power our IT data center. And lastly, with respect to IT, SUNY Broome IT staff is working with both Seaboard and Johnson Controls to tie all the access doors at the CEC, the Culinary Event Center, into the emergency 911 system. That's not currently the case. So when the CEC is not staffed or manned, and if there is a breach, that'll go directly to 911, and we'll get coverage there, relatively quickly. So that is my report. I would be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Seems like no questions. Thank you, David. 5.8.
I just want to say congratulations on the historic award. I think that's incredible, and kudos are deserved. That's just great.
Thank you. And thank you to Dave for all of his leadership down there on the construction of that. It's a lot of historic challenges.
Yes.
Dr. Drum, and Kathy, there were an awful lot of people involved. It wasn't me by any means. Since day one, when the project was conceived, to when we finally were able to open it up, there was an awful lot of hours put in by an awful lot of good people, and the end result was recognized by the Office of Parks and Recreation. So that's a good thing.
Well, it's beautiful and well done. So congrats.
Thank you, Dave. 5.8, 5.9, and 5.10, Michael, I'm assuming they're just standard routine?
That's correct.
Okay. 5.11, human resource update, Lynn?
Good evening. Standard activity for the personnel report reflects December at the college. Thank you.
Thank you. 5.12, budget and finance update, Michael?
Good afternoon. I just want to cover several items from our report to F&F. To start with the budget forecast through the end of December, we're still representing that we're forecasting a balanced budget for the current year's budget. The forecast has changed since last month. Last month, in summary, we had about a $4.5 million forecasted revenue decline. That has increased. The revenue shortfall has increased from about $4.5 million to about $5.4 million, about a $900,000 additional deterioration of revenue. This is primarily driven by the spring enrollment numbers. Our forecast coming out of the fall was about an 11% decline in actual enrollment compared to a budgeted level of about a 7.5% decline. The spring numbers in the forecast that you have is that we're forecasting about an 18.5% decline. It currently, as of last Friday night, was about a 20.5% decline with, a couple of days until school starts. So it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 to around 20% decline. So with that additional decline of about 8% against the 11% decline that we were forecasting in the fall, that additional 8% for the spring and the summer, that's what translated to the additional 900,000 of additional decline on the revenue side. On the expense side, to offset that, we're anticipating that the offset will be payroll and commensurate fringe benefits, predominantly associated with the additional decline in enrollment. We would expect less courses offered for the spring in proportion to the amount of student FTEs that are going to decline. So most of the forecasted additional cost reduction will be in the adjunct overload instructional area, with some savings due to additional positions being unfilled when turnover occurs. So we're still fairly confident that we have a balanced budget. Our forecast for the contractual side, which I think I represented last month, was more than a 50% reduction to the budgeted levels for the non-personnel expense categories. Based on the best trend data we have, it looks like we're being able to sustain that level of spending, at least in the short term, especially with a lot of activities curtailed and expenses curtailed, both because most of the college is remote and certain other activities have been very, very limited. Given all the dynamics that we've had to deal with, I just really want to compliment the senior leadership team, as well as all staff that have really contributed to ensuring that we continue to have a balanced budget for this year. As I've mentioned, usually the first quarter of the calendar year, we're really at a crossroads with three different budgets that we're trying to manage. Currently, Bonadeo is on campus, and they're conducting their audit of last year's financial performance. In your packet in the budget forecast, the first column is actual, and again we're predicting a $90,000 positive variance to the budget last year. This will segue to the question posed by Trustee Andrews. So the proposed budget actually also impacts last year's budget, because as I've mentioned in prior meetings, in the middle of August, which is our last month of last year's fiscal year, the state withheld 20% of our quarterly payment, and that 20% was about $704,000. It has subsequently also taken 20% from our September payment, which would be the first quarter for our fiscal year that we're currently in. And they also took 20% from our December payment, which would have been our second quarter payment. So those 3 quarterly payments are about $2.1 million. So in the governor's proposed budget, totally dependent on whether the state gets some federal stimulus funds in the neighborhood of about $6 billion. That's what the state is saying they need in order to do what Dr. Drum is indicating is the proposed budget for the state for next year. What they're saying is, look, we just took the cash and we never really cut your state aid per FTE, which is the reason that in our actuals for last year, we actually still have that quarterly cut as a receivable, because in our opinion, in our accounting opinion, they never really enacted legislation to cut that. They took the cash, but they never had any statutory authority to cut. So we still have a receivable on last year's books, which is why last month I told you if for some reason they actually cut it, it would put last year in a deficit by 600,000. Well, meanwhile, this proposal has come out. So what the state is proposing, if they get federal stimulus money, is to refund us the 20% cash that they took in August, and also refund community colleges for the $650,000 for Broome for December. So we'll get 1.3 million back in cash, okay? And we'll also get refunded for the September payment. So we'll get 2.15 million back in cash. And then what they're saying is the proposal is that the college would incur a cut of 5%, okay, for the whole year. So 5% translates as a 20% cut for a quarter, okay? So 5% is about 650,000 against revenues for the whole year at a little over 13 million. So if you take 13 million times 5%, that gets you to 650,000. So the good news is if the state gets federal stimulus money, the receivable that we've set up for last year will be accurate, and we'll end up with a $90,000 pretty much break-even budget for last year. Based on the current year's budget, we've forecasted a 20% cut, all right? So to the extent that there's only a 5% cut, then the forecast that is before you today will improve on the state aid portion by, rather than a 20% cut, which is about 2.6 million, it'll be a 5% cut, which is about 650,000. All right. So the big factor that remains is we're kind of in limbo until we see what transpires at the federal level related to federal stimulus. What we've really heard is if for some reason out of that 1.9 trillion, if aid to localities and state governments does not occur, then what we're told, if there's zero support to state and local governments, the 20% will even be worse. Okay, that's the worst case scenario. That it could be a 30% cut, a 35% cut. They get 6 billion, or give or take 6 billion, the cut will be 5% for just this current college fiscal year. It's only supposed to be for 1 year, and then next year we're back to the base, okay? The base that we've been working with last year and this year. If the state gets a huge amount, then there may be some further enhancements to the community colleges, but that's yet to be seen. So that's the best information we have. the next real big trigger is what will happen at the federal level. That will really drive what really happens at the state level. So currently, the recommendation is to stay the course and to continue to be pretty prudent with the spending plan, because there's still, although probably less than 50-50 chance that there still could be some possibility that the state doesn't get any or gets very minimal federal support. So that's the status of the current year's budget and the state budget. Just a couple of other things. We're currently starting the development of next year's budget. It's very challenging to do that in light of not knowing what the state budget dynamics are going to be. The college will most likely, instead of presenting a budget to the board, a preliminary budget to the board in March, we're going to present the preliminary budget to the board in April. And by that time, assuming that the state has a timely budget, which it has traditionally been, by April 1st, then we'll have a lot better information in which for the board to be able to make decisions regarding the key drivers, which is the tuition increase and what the rest of the budget will look like. Then the schedule would be go to the board mid-April. It would then get submitted to the county executive by May 1. Then the county executive generally reviews it during the month of May, makes a recommendation to the county legislature, and the county legislature will take action in mid-June, which is the same time that really the board makes the final determination around tuition and fees and the overall appropriation for the budget. So we're already starting to work on the budget, and more to come as we get final clarity on federal stimulus money as well as on the New York State budget. And then finally, in addition to all those activities occurring, college is currently involved in 3 rather major audits. As I mentioned, Bonadio is on campus and is concluding the audit of the college's 2019-2020 financial results. And again, based on the remote aspects, as well as a lot of unanswered questions about the financial aspects for all of the community colleges in New York State, most of the audit firms are starting later to get a better feel for some of the revenues that have been estimated for last year. In addition, the U.S. Department of Education has notified the college. It actually notified the college in the April-May time period last year that it was doing a comprehensive audit of the couple of titles in the financial aid side of the college. It then decided that after we had collected a tremendous amount of information to send to them electronically, they decided to pause. And so we got notice about 2 weeks ago that they want to commence that audit. We're not too sure whether they want another year's worth of data or whether they're going to be happy with all the data that we've already provided. So that'll be a pretty thorough, comprehensive audit of well over $30 million worth of financial aid that typically runs through the college. In addition, New York State does a random sample of any number of governmental entities, and the college is part of a couple of different New York State retirement system plans, and not on the faculty side, but on the non-instructional side, there's the ERS state retirement plan, and the Broome, SUNY Broome has been selected as as one of a variety of governmental entities that it's doing auditing of a number of transactions that impacts the New York State retirement system. So finance office is very busy in addition to its other daily routines of dealing with 3 different audits and also trying to prepare for the Middle States visit that's coming up in a couple of months. So all in all, I think the college is in reasonably good financial shape. Also included in your packet, as I indicated last month, we've included the cash flow forecast we gave you a cash flow forecast through the end of December last month, and we're giving you the forecast from January through the end of our fiscal year in August. You'll see it kind of is volatile. At low months is around $3 million of cash on hand, and the high mark is about $8 million of cash on hand. You know, you'll see 3 or 4 months where we're at about $5 million. That'll improve if indeed the state refunds us for those 3 quarterly payments. That'll add another couple $1 million. But as you can see, as one of the benefits of trying to build unrestricted fund balance, you know, those months that were below when we're at the $3 million, $4 million mark, we're really tapping into fund balance to cash flow predominantly payroll. So if we were down in the 5% range, we would only have had $2.5 million of cash available. So it's one of several reasons why you know, the college has recommended a fund balance of at least the 10% range, which is about $5.5 million. So that's my report for this month. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Just a note of clarification on a comment Michael made earlier about next year's budget and the state. This should be second nature to everyone by now, but if our enrollment is down by 18% this year, going back to the base means our state funding will be down by 18% next year. So it doesn't mean we will be flat funded. I don't want anybody to be going home doing cartwheels tonight. As relatively speaking, as good as the picture looks, and looking at a full 10% decline in the Broome County High School graduating population this June, who knows what impact COVID's going to have one way or the other. Are families moving in? Are they moving out? You know, who knows? But so it's not. I don't want everybody to think it's quite that rosy. The rosy part is we wouldn't be cut an additional 20% on top of that we would have lost for enrollment.
Yeah, that's a excellent point, because you know, everything's relative. It's like, wow, you know, this is fantastic. Instead of a 20% cut, we're going to get a 5% cut. And just to remind the board, you know, the state aid, which is, you know, again in the neighborhood of 13 million. If you remember last year, they were, for 1 year, they put what we call a floor in, where, because we're driven by our enrollment, that they were going to put a floor into your prior year, and any further decline, you would be held harmless. Well, that only occurred for 1 year. In last year's budget, the governor didn't extend that. And that's why we lost 800 and almost 50,000 last year. The biggest challenge the college has, in addition to state cuts and potential sponsorship cuts, is the fact that the enrollment formula is a weighted average. It's 50% of your most recent year, 30% of the prior year, and 20% of the year prior to that. So that state aid number will really tank over the next couple of years with an average this year. This year, based on the 11% plus the 18% that I just talked about, that's equivalent to about a 15 to 15.5% decline this year. In the narrative of the budget forecast that I gave you, the average for the last 3 years has been a 10% decline. So that weighted average with this 18.5 to 20% or 15 to 16% for the whole year will significantly impact when you see next year's budget proposal. When we do those calculations with a 5% decline and a enrollment decline, which again, in next year's budget, in addition to this average for 15%, I will tell you that we will most likely factor an additional forecasted 10% decline in enrollment in addition, independent of COVID, because in Broome County, the high school graduation numbers are going to be down 10% compared to last year. So that base, which is about 60% of who enrolls at the college, that will be yet another significant reduction in our number of FTEs. So, critical to all of this will be to structurally and right size the costs, because we know that enrollment is going to continue to decline over the next 4 or 5 years, and we have to implement a budget that's sustainable over time.
Any questions for Michael? Thank you, Michael. 5.13 Student Village Housing Report, Dr. Ross.
Hi, it's a standard remittance report. Last fall, we had 208 residents, even though we budgeted for 240. For the spring, we're budgeting for 200. We expect to be able to hit that target. And then is this weekend with mandatory, we've asked the students to come with negative COVID tests. We were very blessed to have only one resident who tested positive for COVID in the fall. We're going for 0 this spring with mandatory testing on Monday and Tuesday, and then mandatory testing for 100% of the village every week.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Ross? 5.14 Media Report, Jesse.
Media highlights are in your package. Just let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. I don't believe there's any other new business, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Jason Andrews, Trustee Andrews. Second, Barb. All in favor? Aye. Everyone's muted. I got to hear you guys.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Everybody, it looks like it's unanimous. Have a great remainder of the week and a good month. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, very much.
Be safe.
Safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.